Alright everyone, it's a super special day because this is a fourth general video, still a BitChute exclusive after this. Don't worry, there may even be a sixth because of the British election, looking at the results there. I think they come in today, maybe tomorrow. I don't even fucking know. Nobody knows about the UK's election system. They gotta rig the vote plenty, so Corbyn's gotta go out and empty out some ballots actually. It might take him a while. You could put him in the dumpster because there's too many Boris Johnson supporters, especially too many Nigel Farage supporters. We gotta talk about the FISA court system. Now, word to the wise, I'm going to do it again. I told you so. Because like 5 fucking years ago, I was talking about the FISA court and how it was unlawful. It breached the Fourth Amendment. It was an accident waiting to happen. It was a terrible idea, and it would be misused. Because the idea of having an unaccountable executive-style court that doesn't function in normal judiciary proceedings to handle government complaints by intel agencies and others with kid gloves and rubber stamp them violating the Fourth Amendment was always problematic to me as a person who understands the concept of the Fourth Amendment. The Constitution's clear. The right to privacy, and also the right to cross-examine, to face your accusers, to know, basically understand what you're being charged with, to cross-examine, to try to show that you're innocent, or at the very least, they can't prove you're not guilty, that you're guilty or whatever. To have a jury trial and all of these other things are fundamentally ignored by the FISA court. The way the FISA court works is this, and I'm going to get into the Horowitz report. Technically, the left is telling the truth. I'll get into that. You're not going to believe it, but there's a workaround, a real weaselly verbal way in which they're technically telling the truth while blatantly lying. Get into that. The FISA court operates like this. Intel agency decides you're a criminal. The intel agency compiles evidence, extra legally, without a warrant being issued, by the way. They just sweep it up because they're spying on literally everything. Every phone call, every email, everything. They go before the FISA court and say, look, John Doe over here is a criminal. We need to investigate him. Here's our evidence. The FISA court doesn't even look at it. They rubber stamp it, and they go ahead with it. Unless they recognize the names of the defendants on the first few pages of the docket, they don't even have the time to go through it. They are a rubber-stamping bureaucratic agency. They are not a proper court. By the way, they are blatantly unconstitutional. The FISA court itself is unconstitutional. It fundamentally violates the spirit of what the judiciary is supposed to be involved with. It fundamentally acts more as a court that is at the behest of the legislature and of executive-run bureaucratic groups especially. It's a workaround to the Fourth Amendment. What was realized was that normal courts couldn't handle classified intel the right way according to the standards of the FBI and the Justice Department and the Pentagon. And so they said, we'll just create our own court. And this court will be stacked with judges that are severe authoritarians and won't even look at the material. That's exactly what happened here. Now here's why the left is technically telling the truth. Again, bombshell reporting here, you won't hear from anyone else. The left has been very careful in how they've cast their investigation. When they came out with their report and they said, well, there was no political animus towards Trump. There was no political reason for this investigation. True. The FISA itself was the political reason. The intel agencies took up information they were given by political operatives. The politicization of it, the down, dirty, underhanded, smelly, stinking cesspit of DC swamp happened before the warrant was issued. A bunch of people who were blatantly motivated by politics, clearly hated Trump, clearly knew the Steele dossier, which was their only major piece of evidence that they fronted, was false, knew that it was concocted, knew that Trump did nothing wrong, knew that there was no legitimate evidence of any wrongdoing that should have sparked an investigation. They ignored this. They rolled up that material together, and they managed to get it through the FISA court. It was rubber-stamped by Rosenstein, who didn't even recall in testimony to Congress whether he read it before he stamped it. He gave his blessing to the investigation, and then it proceeded. From that moment only is it an investigation. So when they say the investigation, when the IG report says the investigation was not politically motivated, you are correct. The initial lead up to it was politically motivated. This has not been differentiated substantially enough by the Republicans, and they basically fumbled. The Republicans have fumbled. All of these, Lindsey Graham and all these others, Nunes, they've been handed the ultimate win, but they didn't really use it. And unfortunately, the news cycle has left them behind. So, they still win, but they could have put the entire issue to rest. Now, Nunes has come out, along with others, saying, well, the FISA court should be abolished, or at the very least, we need to look into how it works and reform it. Dude, again, I'm going to make a little prediction here, and I did this before. Ted Cruz, years ago, Ted Cruz partners with Rand Paul with regards to the NSA surveillance. Rand Paul says abolish it. Ted Cruz says it too and says, well, this is terrible, it shouldn't be happening. But at the last minute he says, well, we'll put a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. And he does his cuck thing. He does his stupid neocon thing because he's a backstabbing sellout traitor, which is what I warn people of, not to like Ted Cruz too much. Beard aside, that admittedly at least he can grow one. I never expected that to be the case. Ted Cruz says, well, it'll continue, but we're gonna make a compromise. That compromise is we're still gonna steal all your info. Spy on everything, but private servers will hold it. The government won't hold the information. Private companies will be made to do that instead. They'll have to foot the bill. Rand Paul was livid, and he was right to be. The same thing will happen here with Nunes. What'll happen is that the Republicans are going to make a big stink about the FISA system. Well, we should get rid of it because it's clearly politicized. At the last hour, it'll be tied to a budget deal, probably. And at the last hour, they'll come through with a compromise, and that compromise will basically be meaningless. The compromise will be, okay, well, we'll look into the FISA court in unofficial proceedings, and we're going to keep them from rubber stamping by having an extra person there who will kind of sort of nudge them towards not doing so and act as a public defendant. They'll do some stupid shit like that. They're not going to solve the problem. You think that Nunes or any of these people are any better than the Democrats? Oh, man. Oh, are you my sweet summer child? It's so very funny to watch people that haven't been blackpilled to the point where they understand that that's not even possibly feasible. Nunes is just part of the swamp, too. He's just a more intelligent, more entertaining version of it. The only one there that's being a maverick, Trump and Rand and a few others are the only people there that make any sense. Hell, you got a few Democrats that used to. Kucinich sold out. Gravel sold out. He hasn't endorsed anyone. He doesn't even run his own fucking Twitter handle. He's like, what, 89 years old at this point. I was playing a little bit of a game of whether he's dead or alive, actually. Then I looked, found he had a Twitter handle, and not long after announced his run for about a month. I think he just wanted some donations. He just wanted to buy an extra acre of Alaskan land for his cabbage farm, probably, or something. But no, the FISA court should be done away with. It's unconstitutional. But the problem is, if you have a court that handles top secret info regularly, everything's like redacted, you don't even know who's being investigated half the time on the surface, it's impossible to challenge them. You know, you have to have a plaintiff in order to challenge things. You can't have a plaintiff if the plaintiff can't cross-examine, can't call witnesses because everything's classified, can't confront the court directly. The court is completely protected by intel. The intel agencies get their way all the time. There's no way to actually put the genie back in the bottle. Only Congress can do this. And it'll probably take a supermajority of Congress. It might take a constitutional amendment to stop the FISA bullshit. Do you really think that they're capable of doing that? I don't think in their current incarnation that they are. Maybe in the future, maybe there will be a true libertarian revolution in the future. We can finally start reforming our republic into some semblance of normalcy, some semblance of decency, go back to the way things were when we were truly leaders in the world, truly prosperous. Right now is not that time. We have too much detritus. We don't have enough of a will in the population. What we need to do is take the tech revolution and use jury nullification and public awareness and educate one another on civics and do things. We need to do things for ourselves. We can't keep relying on government. There's no magic bullet, no messiah in government that's going to save us from authoritarianism. It has to come from the people. It will never come from DC. It's too corrupt. It's a lost cause. It needs to be reformed from the outside. Groups that are not currently in government have no choice but to rise up and use public awareness, to use the judicial system especially, to shield one another as they reform the system. And they'll have to face billionaires and corporate lawyers while doing so. It'll be a mess. And there may never be the will in the population to do that. We may just recede into the back pages of history as an empire that was because of authoritarian bullshit, which is exactly why I and all other sane individuals fight against it. That's about all. Peace out.